Hello, friends. Hello, friends. This is Dr. Mohammad Basheer K, Assistant Professor, Department of Education, Aligarh Muslim University Center, Malappuram. I'm here to discuss basics of educational psychology. Actually, this course, Educational Psychology and Statistics, is designed for B.Ed second semester students. Actually, there are 4 units in this course. Unit 1, Introduction to Educational Psychology. Unit 2, Approaches to Learning. Unit number 3, Mental Health and Hygiene. Unit number 4, Elementary Statistics. Now, in this first unit, Introduction to Educational Psychology, here there are 4 subtopics here. First one, meaning and definition of psychology and educational psychology. Number 2, nature and scope of educational psychology. Number 3, significance of educational psychology to classroom teacher. Number 4, methods of studying human behavior, introspection, observation, and experimentation. Here, today, I want to discuss, firstly, the meaning and definition of psychology and educational psychology. Basically, the word psychology is derived from 2 Greek words, that is, psyche and logos. Psyche means soul, and logos means science. So, psychology is the science of soul. In ancient period, they considered the psychology as the science of soul. After that, there was wide, wide deliberation on that term, because psychology is the science of soul. And of course, human soul is something metaphysical. It cannot be seen, observed, and touched, and we cannot make scientific experiment on soul. So how we can study the soul? Then in 18th century, the discussions, after the deliberations, psychology was considered as a science of mind. William James, 1892, defined psychology as a science of mental process. But the word mind is also quite ambiguous, as there was confusion regarding the nature and functions of mind. So they were searching for a new definition. Then modern psychologists, of course, they came up with this new definition, that is, psychology is the science of consciousness. Consciousness. James Sully defined psychology as the science of inner world. And another modern psychologist, Wilhelm Wundt, he defined psychology as a science which studies the internal experiences. Then William Dougal defined psychology as a science of behavior. Pillsbury and James Watson, they defined psychology as a science of behavior. So, what actually we are saying, first, psychology lost its soul, then psychology lost its mind, then psychology loses its consciousness. Right now, psychology is science of behavior. Now we are considering psychology as a science of behavior. Now, these are the famous definitions for psychology. Psychology is the science of behavior and experience on human beings. By B.F. Skinner, Crow and Crow, there's what defining psychology is the study of human behavior and human relationship. Moving on, now we are discussing about educational psychology. Of course, for budding teachers, for teachers, the knowledge of psychology is very much essential. Why? Because that's why we need the knowledge of about education psychology. We know that there are many branches for psychology, especially clinical psychology, military psychology, um, like criminal psychology, family psychology, many branches are there. So here in this course, we are discussing about why educational psychology and what educational psychology. So as we know that educational psychology is the application of psychology in educational field or educational settings. So here we are going to find some good definitions for educational psychology. So there are some here, you can read from the slide. Yes, education psychology is that branch of psychology in which findings of psychology are applied in the field of education. It is a scientific study of human behavior in educational setting. Charles Skinner, educational psychology deals with behavior of human beings in educational situations. So, two terms, human behavior and education. E.A. Peel defined educational psychology as the science of education. Education psychology is the science of education. So, education by all means is an attempt to mold and shape the behavior of the pupil. It aims to produce desirable changes in him for all round development of his personality. The essential knowledge and skill to do this job satisfactorily is supplied by educational psychology. Moving on, why we need educational psychology? As I told you, for a teacher, the knowledge of educational psychology is very much needed. Why? Because now we can understand that education psychology helps the teacher to understand the development of his pupils, the range and limits of their capacities, the process by which they learn and their social relationship. Work of education psychologist resembles with that of an engineer who is technical expert. The engineer supplies all the knowledge and the skills for the accomplishment of his job satisfactorily. Huh? For example, construction of a bridge. So education psychologist supplies all the information, principles and techniques essential for understanding the behavior of the pupil in response to educational environment and desired modification of the behavior to bring an all-round development of his personality. That's why we can conclude that educational psychology is the science and technology of education. Educational psychology as a science and technology of education. It covers important topics like learning theories, teaching methods, motivation, cognitive, emotional, and moral development, and parent-child relationship, etc. and etc. etc. In short, it is a scientific discipline. Educational psychology is a scientific discipline that address the questions: why do some students learn more than others, and what can be done to improve that learning. So that's why we need the knowledge of education psychology to become a fruitful teacher and an effective teacher. So moving on, nature and scope of educational psychology. So if we are going to once we are discussing the nature and scope of education psychology, we can understand that, of course, psychology is a science. Why? Because we are conducting so many so many experiments in psychology. That's why we are saying that psychology is a science. Many experiments we are conducting. That's why we are saying that psychology is a science. Then we are conducting. So we are saying that education psychology is a natural science. We are saying that, of course, we are discussing about. We are saying that it's a social science. An educational psychologist conducts his investigation like sociologist, anthropologist, economist, or political scientist. The education psychologist human beings and the sociability and their sociability. So we can say that education psychology is a social science. And moving on, education psychology is a positive science. Why? Because normative science like logic or ethics deals with the facts as they ought to be. A positive science deals with the facts as they are or as they operate. Education psychology studies the child's behavior as it is, not as it ought to be. So we can conclude that educational psychology is a positive science. And of course, educational psychology is an applied science. Why? Because we are applying psychological principles in educational settings. And finally, we can say that educational psychology is a developing or a growing science. Moving on, what is the scope of educational psychology? So, in educational psychology, we are discussing about the learner, we are discussing about the learning experiences, we are discussing about the learning process, we are discussing about the learning situation or environment, and we are discussing about the teacher. These are the main area of educational psychology. For example, if you are taking about the learner, the various characteristics of the students, the learner, his development, his capacities, potentials, his motivation, interest, his personality, intelligence, each and every factor we are going to learn in education psychology. That's why the learner is one of the main area of education psychology. And second one, we are going to discuss about the learning experiences. Of course, we are saying that learning should be pleasurable. How we can how we can change learning as a pleasurable experience? For that, we have to provide them pleasurable experiences. So, in education psychology, we are discussing the various learning experiences. Then we are discussing the process of learning. Actually, what is happening at the time of learning? Huh? That's we are doing. What is the process of learning? Whether learning is a physical process, mental process, or both, we are discussing it. And we are talking about learning situation as well. A learning situation and learning environment. Now we are moving about the teacher. The education psychology is very much detailing, discussing about the teacher, qualities of a teacher, what are the essential qualities needed for a successful, effective teacher. All this area we are discussing. See this through this diagram, you can understand that, of course, these are the scope of area of educational psychology: learner, learning process, teaching strategies, teacher, learning content, of course, curriculum, and evaluation of learning process. Moving on, why we need the knowledge of educational psychology. Already we have discussed it. You can understand this. You can read all these things. Significance of educational psychology to a classroom teacher. These are the main point. First one, to understand the stages of development, to understand the nature of classroom learning, to understand the individual differences, classroom problems, to understand effective methods of teaching, various methods of teaching, and to understand the procedure of curriculum construction, and to provide guidance and counseling for students, and to understand how to and assess the students. Moreover, the knowledge of educational psychology help a teacher understand, to know himself or herself. Moreover, educational psychology helps changing attitude and innovative thinking. Moving on, and we are going to study. Actually, we concluded that psychology is a science of behavior. Psychology is a science of study of behavior and experiences. How we can study the human nature. That's why we are going to discuss about how we can study the human behavior. Study of behavior can be made through the observation of learners' behavior. Through observation, we can study. Observation may be carried out in various forms by employing various methods. How we can do the observation? These are the some methods through which we can observe a learner. For example, introspection, natural observation, experimentation, differential method like normative survey method, clinical method, psychophysical method. These are the methods we are going to utilize to study human behavior. These are the references for the first unit. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any query, you may contact me through WhatsApp, or you may view me via mail. You can me WhatsApp or mail, via mail. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.